Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Caregiving Gen X Style. I'm Steve Mullen.
And I'm Jennifer Mullen.
This is something of a bonus episode because, at the end of the last show, I said we would not be putting out an episode until later in June. Well, I fibbed. There were a lot of loose ends that we wanted to tie up, and we decided to put out a quickie show that wraps things up and previews the summer. But first, Jennifer, how's your mom?
I love the way you asked that. There's a lot of pizzazz in the way you asked that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the thing that I always say. I'm going to say...
My mother's doing fine.
No, I say she's doing well.
She's doing well. Sorry.
Which she is. We had a lovely outing a few days ago. Nothing special. It was just she needed to take a run to Target. We did that. I had multiple little errands that I had to run, in and out of some places. And she happily just sits in the car. I run in, I make a return, I do something quick, whatever. And then we have, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before on the episode, but there's a produce stand. So we live in a suburb of a city. And then if you go really just a couple miles down the road.
Take her right out of our neighborhood.
Rural.
It gets rural real quick.
Rural juror. For any
rural
of you
juror.
Third Rock. No,
30 Rock.
30.
You're thinking of Third Rock from the
Third
sun.
Rock. Yeah.
30
Anyway,
Rock.
30 Rock. Rural. We live in a slightly rural area. And so anyway, Mom and I love to drive a little bit past our neighborhood by 10 miles. There's a produce stand out there, which, by the way, has the best bacon on the face of the planet. It's fresh bacon from their farm. And it's a drive for us. And she loves it. It's a really peaceful drive.
It's an outing.
It's an outing. It's a really peaceful drive. It's beautiful. And I am not kidding because she said it again, this drive. She's like, I just love this drive. And it's great.
Well, she lived in a rural area with you, and it reminds her of that, and it reminds me of that every time I go that direction.
And me too. I mean, I think both of us, we sort of take a little step back in time. We listen to a little music. We chat, but we're also quiet sometimes, and we really just enjoy the scenery, and we point out pretty trees to each other and look at that field and all the greenery and whatever. So anyway, we had a lovely outing this past weekend doing that, and then we came back and had lunch at one of our favorite places. I don't know where all of you are listening from, but we have Bonchon Chicken. I don't know how much
that is a chain.
It's a chain. I just don't know how. I literally don't know how.
I have no idea
widespread
how
it is.
Widespread now.
But we love it. And that might have been a different restaurant where I told the story before, but same thing this weekend when we stopped and had lunch. But a very similar situation where we had the most lovely staff who saw what I was doing with Mom, which is parking the car, getting her out, getting her in, seated at a table, getting back out. I have to park the car, then come back in, and then we do the whole thing sort of in reverse when it's time to go. And just the most lovely young man who waited on us and was just as sweet as he could be. And my mom made a few comments of I wasn't always like this.
Oh.
And he said, you mean beautiful? Because that's all I see. It was just really sweet and lovely and kind and just helped make our day really, really good. So we had a great day.
Good.
So that's how my mom is. Steve, how's your mom?
We have a lot to talk about.
We do.
So, as you'll recall, for the last couple of episodes, we've been working to get Nana into a new assisted living because the one before just turned absolutely crappy and terrible.
And they kind of kicked her out.
And they basically tried to kick her out. So she is now officially in. She has moved in. The move was, well, as we're recording this last week, by the time it's published, it'll be 2 weeks before. But regardless, it was a stressful few days, So the Wednesday was packing day. When they came in, they did a great job packing up. Basically, my job was to come in and distract her and get her out of the apartment and thus out of their way. And the next day was moving day, which, these movers are fantastic.
They were.
I can't say a bad thing about them.
They
were amazing. I will say the unpacking, they were supposed to unpack as well. That was a bit of a scramble. And sometimes I felt like it's just, let's get this box unpacked and put it someplace. And that's kind of where it was. But, I mean, they didn't know where things should go.
I guess. I was pretty impressed. So I was not part of the packing day. I was part of the moving day. And I was actually pretty impressed. So I know there were 2 sections to this. You had the people who did the packing, and then you had the movers, separate company, basically.
I think they were
contract
contractors.
company, whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
So I was super impressed on actual moving day, right? So I'm at the new place, and the 2 ladies who had done the packing.
Right.
I was very impressed at their system of how they had packed and then how they were prepared to unpack. And in particular, and Steve, you might not have been there for like portions of this, the woman who, for example, was in charge of like unpacking things for your mom in her new, quote unquote kitchen.
Yes, kitchenette.
She was very mindful of understanding that your mom's in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Where are we going to put things? What can she reach? They might have come from one place in the previous location, but maybe we were going to have to adjust some things. And then there were a couple times where the 3 of us, so it was me, your mom, and this one woman who had done that part of the packing, conversations were happening. And I would stop and say to your mom, in the middle of the conversation, like, okay, here's what this cabinet looks like, and where do you want to put this piece? And this woman, clearly, again, we hired it
was a senior moving company.
Which, when you hired them, I was like, what does that mean? I don't really get it. But I totally got it, because this woman, she took the cue at a certain moment. She was like, I need to step back and let these 2 family members just decide where are the, plastic bags going, where are the sandwich bags going.
Right.
She knew exactly like when to step back and let the family determine where things needed to go. And she also weighed in when she needed to weigh in.
Right.
I was super impressed, actually.
And I will say this, much like I said from the last move, the last pack up and move, I could not have done this without Jennifer. I'm a guy, and I mean, maybe it's just me, maybe it's all guys, I don't know, but I just want to get things done and do what needs to be done. But there were a lot of emotions involved in all of this, and I'll kind of explain that. So I had been a little bit worried. I put together the grid. I don't know if everybody's been listening, if they've listened to the Nightmare of Cleaning Out, the 2-part episode we did. I put together the same grid with the graph paper like I did last time, but I was a little concerned. And what I was concerned about is that I had to make room in between the furniture for the wheelchair. It was a lot easier with the place that she lived before because the rooms were bigger. This time I had a concern that her chest of drawers was not going to fit. And when, I think I've mentioned she got a new bed, which was replacing the Sleep Number bed. This one's more, it's like a hospital bed, but it's like the Mac Daddy of all hospital beds. The thing is beautiful. I want just like it.
It is.
But, she went from a queen size bed to a full size bed, partially to make space. But even then, when they installed that bed, I looked and I'm like, I just can't figure out how the dresser and the chest are going to fit in this room. Jennifer's looking at me like, and I knew this. I knew this. I knew it. I knew it.
No, here's where I think this. Here's where I think this is going. You did an amazing job. You measured everything. You had everything measured out perfectly.
People, you can't hear this, but I'm rolling my eyes right now, all the way back in my head.
But I'm sorry, Steve. Come on. I have to take a little bit of credit for this one, because we walk in the week before she moves in and you show me like, oh, I've done all the measurements. This is where everything is going. And I said to you, I don't think her wheelchair is going to squeeze in at an angle through the dresser and the chest of drawers and like maneuver around.
As soon as the bed was put in, I knew it then. And I started trying to prep my mother. I went back to where I said, I'm a little concerned that chest is not going to fit. And she said, well, we can't get rid of the chest. And so we went back and forth. And the answer, which I knew what the answer was going to be, let's see how it goes. I knew that was what the answer was going to be. And sure enough, They brought the chest in. They already had the dresser in. They already had, there was a little table that was in there. And I knew just by looking at it, there was no way this was going to work. Mainly, would she be able to navigate her wheelchair in there? And now Jennifer's rolling her eyes at me. I knew it. I just had to manage it. So, they brought the chest in. Basically, it's, where's mom? Let's go get her. She's got to see this because she's going to understand, one would hope, immediately that this is not going to work. And it even took a little while then. I mean, there was so little space in that bedroom when that chest was there. And I said, look, if we move the bed over here, if we do this with this table, we put this over here, it's going to open up the room a whole lot more. But even then, she still wasn't sure. And it's difficult. I mean, it's just basically one more thing that's being taken away from her. She's had this, she's lost her leg, she's lost her independence, she's lost this, she's lost that, and now she's got to lose this chest that she liked. So I get it, it's hard, and you're looking at me like, what?
So then when we're in the middle of all of this, part of what you wanted to discuss
was what?
We need to figure out how to downsize out of this chest of drawers so that we can fit it here.
This is where I'm saying, thank you, Jennifer, because you kept me from saying, the chest has got to go, which is probably what I would have said. And yes, I was a lot more gentle with it than that.
We needed to just get the items out of the chest in boxes and put away. We didn't have to decide at that moment,
no.
Hey, what of these things out of this chest do we just get rid of?
Right.
Nope.
No.
Not the day to have that conversation.
And
here is what I would say to anyone who's in the middle of a move like this. You have to pick and choose and really be thinking through what the emotions of the day are, because the emotions were high enough.
Oh boy.
That your mom had to get rid of the chest, which, by the way, if we haven't said it, the chest of drawers was your father's.
It was, yes.
Your mom has been hanging on to this chest of drawers that was
part
his.
Of the set. I mean, I get that.
It was
She
part
didn't
of the
want to
set,
split up
and
the
it was
set.
his, and she didn't want to get rid of
And
it.
at the previous apartment, she had plenty of room for it. It
and
wasn't a
meanwhile,
problem.
she'd filled it with all kinds of stuff that she didn't need.
All kinds of stuff.
But that was not the day to decide to,
Of course not.
What do we get rid of? What do we keep?
Of course not. No. You're looking at me like that's what I thought was going to happen. Okay. Well,
Maybe
anyway. So let's say, here's what we've learned.
We're keeping it real, y'all.
Here's what we've learned.
It's been a little stressful.
It has been. My back hurts. Jennifer's shoulders hurt. I mean, we're kind of a mess right now. Here's what I learned from all of this when it comes to dealing with my mother and downsizing. And she desperately still, at this point, still needs to downsize her clothes and the stuff that she's keeping around that she's never ever going to wear again. But what I've learned, though, is that, so for instance, I said, your closet is smaller here. And, we probably ought to look through this and eliminate some clothes that you haven't worn for a long time. Oh, I already did that. I already looked through that, and I already pulled in some stuff out of there.
I heard that many times.
Right. But what I've learned, though, is if I do very similar to what we did, again, if you go back and listen to the Nightmare of Cleaning Out, what we did was we took anything we had questions about, we took it to her at the sniff and held it up and said, basically, is this bringing you joy in the Marie Kondo thing? So I've learned, though, even if she says, I've looked through that and I want to keep everything in there, but if you hold it up and show it to her, for instance, 2 different examples, her closet, like I said, her bedroom closet is smaller. And I said, well, let's go ahead and get, what we can down to the bottom shelf. Then there'll be some storage on this shelf, blah, 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 blah. She said, well, I already looked through that stuff. I said, okay, that's fine. Let's just go ahead and move it down. And everything I moved down, I held it up. And sure enough, there were 5 shirts there, plus a couple of other things that she decided she could get rid of. She said, you know what? I never liked that shirt. And these other ones that I bought at the same time, they were kind of crappy, and it was a mistake to buy them in the first place. So, and also there was a drawer that she had like 8 sweaters in. And she said, well, I don't wear them. I really like them, and I really like to wear them, but I haven't been able to wear them in assisted living because it's always so warm. I said, well, okay. Do you need 8? Well, I don't know. And then we pulled the drawer out. I lifted each one of them up, and she got rid of half of them. That's still not enough. I recognize that, but it was progress. It was progress that we made. And the same thing with her coats. She had about 8 or 10 coats. She doesn't leave the assisted living all that often. She just needs a few coats in case she does. So sure enough, we went through this. She had this big old parka that she could not possibly put on and sit in a wheelchair. It would have been too overstuffed. So she got rid of that, plus another jacket. Oh, I never liked that jacket in the first place. That's when I almost screamed. But we got rid of it, and we eliminated half of her coats. So just showing them to her, I think, is the way to go with my mother, at least.
I'm going to have a positive learning moment with your mom. So moving day, and then I came back the next day and, left on moving day, as we both did, exhausted. Oof, too much stuff. The Berenstain Bears and too much stuff. It's a book we read to our kids when they were younger.
Yeah. I wanted to give a copy to my mother and just make her read it.
Literally what it felt like. But we come back the next day, and I was reminded, so this is the positive, your mom is really good with spatial relations, and I was very impressed with a few things that she had shifted and moved. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought. I'm thinking of the quilt rack.
Right.
The way that she actually shifted it in her bedroom, because I'm like, why are we keeping the quilt rack? There's
Jennifer,
not enough space.
Jennifer, that was my idea. Yeah.
Fine. Okay, a positive for you.
Thank you.
And your mom. Whatever. Good. Another thing I learned as a daughter-in-law, all of you daughter-in-laws or son-in-laws out there, listen to this. So moving day, as we're unpacking boxes, and I'm realizing that there are 10 throw blankets.
Yes.
Now, mind you, in a normal size house, 10 throw blankets that are spread out throughout a normal size house, fine. But in a 2-room assisted living apartment, not a lot of room. And in fact, the one that I held up that I would have happily have gotten rid of, by the way, we gave her because it was the one that had her initials monogrammed down in the corner. We did that. We had someone monogram her initials and give that blanket to her. And I said, and I said it very gently. I said, so how many blankets
does one person need?
I didn't say it that way, but I was like, so how many blankets do you think you need? And she didn't get snippy with me, but she did. She just
because she loves you so much. She probably loves you more than me.
I don't know about that, but she did look at me a little bit perplexed, and she's like, well, it's not that I need all of them, but like I like to change them out.
Yes. And
I had that moment of, number one, I felt a little snippiness, which I was not accustomed to from your mom to me, but also like, okay, I get it. Like, that's a hard thing to think about potentially taking away for someone who is now living in a much smaller space than they're used to. Your mom was someone who took great joy in changing everything out for every season at all times. Yes, not summer, winter, spring, fall, like
tablecloths, sheets,
every holiday,
blankets,
everything,
wreaths.
Everything has to be swapped out. And listen, it's part of why, like, her house, no matter where she lived,
always looks nice.
Always looks beautiful.
But I don't know if we've made this 100% clear, but I will make sure that I do right now. So the place she moved from, the original assisted living, to the place she moved, the apartment's much smaller.
It's much smaller.
I think we've made that clear just to make sure.
Still lovely, but much smaller.
Noticeably smaller.
And then one more thing, because then I know we're going to move on, but I do have to say this about your mom and her, like how she shifts and moves things around. So, the teapots.
Yes.
All right. So, teapots.
Yeah.
They get packed, they get moved, they get unpacked.
And I'll be posting some pictures, by the way. Please continue, Jennifer.
It looks, I mean,
she did a great job. Jennifer did a great job.
We took a picture from previous teapot hutch.
Right.
And I was able to replicate. I had my phone up on the shelf and I kept
don't even know that I knew you were doing that.
Oh, yes. I kept zooming in. I mean, I got the teapots arranged because I was so proud of myself last time, which I was just like, yes, this looks nice. But then this time I was like...
Well, and she had said before, Jennifer put them in exactly the right space.
Right. So
now you had to replicate that.
Pressure. So I had the phone up and I was getting the teapots in exactly the right place. And there was this smattering of like teeny tiny little teapots. And also your mom said to me as we were unwrapping things, she said something about, these specific teapots that have like, they're all-in-one teapots that have like the teacup and then the teapot and then the lid. She's like, I have an idea for for them. And I was, okay. So as I'm putting the shelf together, the hutch together, I left a couple of those off. But then on the hutch were still a couple of the small ones. Go back the next day and I look at this little shelf that your mom has right by the front door. And she has perfectly and beautifully arranged these couple of teapots that she specifically said, I have an idea for them. And then she had also taken a few off the shelf that I had put on the shelf and like carried them over there. And she had this, it looked lovely. It was right by the front door and it was like another little collection of teapots and it looked beautiful. A little smattering of teapots.
Yeah.
It looked beautiful. So
I think we're going to get into a summer preview in a second, but I think we'll probably talk a little bit about this in the next episode, but I have to say the new Alf, couple of good things. What I've noticed, and again, no Alf is perfect.
Nope.
They all have a little bit of a problem here and there, and quite frequently there's the same problems. However, here's what she said so far. Everybody sitting down? She actually used this word. So far, the food has been fabulous. Gasp. I know. I mean, seriously,
it's like
because
amazing.
I hear complaints about food everywhere.
Yep.
She got hospital, sniff, her previous Alf.
Yep.
I hear complaints about, she said those words, fabulous. That word, it almost knocked me over. And also, partially because of Jennifer, I'm going to go ahead and give her every credit here.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
She has already found some people.
What do you mean partially because of me?
100% because of Jennifer.
Completely because of me.
She has already found her people, at least to an extent so far. She's found several friends who are, I mean, again, part of the issue is with somebody who's in an assisted living, whose body's failing like hers, but her mind is still more or less working. The issue is to find the other people whose minds are more or less working, and you can hold a conversation with them.
So let me tell you all what I did in case you
Please.
can learn from this. So Steve and I were at the facility about a week before she moved in. Steve was actually showing me around. I hadn't seen it yet.
Yes.
We were back in the activities room where they had just finished up the wine down Wednesdays, wine and cheese on Wednesdays, whatever.
Yeah.
And there was a
Wine
table
and cheese Friday.
of 3 ladies, and I remember standing there thinking,
okay, these are the targets.
They're really with it. I feel like these are people that my mother-in-law could actually be friends with. Fine. And they were we chatted with them for a while, whatever. So moving day, fast forward to moving day, a week later, we're in the middle of all the chaos. And by the way, I mean, the moving company, again, great, but there were a lot of people and there were a lot of us in a small space.
Very.
And lunchtime comes around and I said, you know what? Let me take her to lunch. Steve, you stay here. You manage the moving people. I'll take her up to lunch. So we roll up to the dining room.
Right.
I roll her up to the dining room. And lo and behold, walk into the dining room and I see these 3 ladies that I had seen at the wine and cheese event the week before. As I'm asking the question, is anyone sitting here? Can we join you? As I am rolling your mom right on up to the table. And they were like, oh no, join us. And they were lovely. And I was right. Like they were all with it. Mm-hmm. Betty, pharmacist, 54 years. Patty, lovely. Pat. Right. Lovely. Nita, who's like 100 years old, but like lovely and still pretty with it.
Can still walk.
And moved your mom right on up there. And then the next day when we were back for more unpacking stuff and they were doing a cookout and we went out in the courtyard area and lo and behold, all those women were there. Again, scooted your mom right on up. Move those walkers out of the way, ladies, because we're moving your mom on up to the table. And it was great.
I think pretty much every meal since then has been with them. So it's all great. I mean, again, there are some little issues. The overnights are always a problem, but I think that's just everywhere. Yep. But the activities seem to be really well done. Everything seems to be as organized as it's going to be, and we're hoping for the best. Oh, and I think I mentioned before that my mother had lost a crown at the hospital. It was put back in today. She was so happy. Excellent. And I don't blame her.
Yeah, I get it.
She's been rolling around with a hole in the front of her mouth for
I get it.
darn near 2 months now. So, all right. So now that those updates are out of the way, let's talk about what's happening this summer. So as we mentioned in the last episode, we plan to shift our summer schedule. 1 new episode out later this month, then 1 show in July and 1 in August. And once we get to September, we'll shift back to our every other Tuesday schedule. In our next episode, barring anything really interesting that comes up, like for instance, a listener voicemail or something like that. We'll talk about assisted living facilities or ALFs. And I think we've obviously learned a lot about that recently. And we'll discuss whether an ALF is the best place for your loved one.
In a later episode, we're also planning to talk with a friend of ours who's dealing with the sibling problems that frequently come up when caregiving for an elderly parent. Basically, they can't agree on much of anything.
Nope. And we're also hoping in the near future to bring into the show a legal expert who can talk about all the documents you really ought to have on hand while caregiving. I mean, it's not the most thrilling sort of thing, but it's really, really, really important.
And of course, when our listeners reach out with questions, those frequently turn into episodes.
And we hope that you will.
Please send us. And I've been talking to a few people who, it's interesting, like they comment on listening to the podcast and they then will share a story with me. And I say, please send us an email,
the darn thing.
Call, leave a voicemail. So I hope that some of our friends and listeners will do that.
Right. And so with all of that out of the way, it's time to get to the fun part of the episode. We have nearly 5 minutes of bloopers and outtakes for you to enjoy, and these outtakes are actually by demand. That demand came from Jennifer.
It came from me.
So without further ado, here are the screw-ups and weird conversations that you don't get to hear in our episodes. Enjoy. You all set?
Yes.
You sure about that?
Maybe.
We've been recording for a minute and almost 2 minutes now.
People like bloopers.
Yeah, those aren't
Outtakes.
really bloopers. Those are
Whatever.
outtakes, yeah.
Outtakes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Caregiving Gen X Style.
What are you doing?
Just trying to seem casual.
You realize this is like audio, right?
Yes,
You don't
I
have
know,
to,
but
like flipping your hair.
you can hear things on audio even though it's a
Thank you,
audio
dear.
medium.
I went through the same
you can hear a
broadcast
smile.
journalism program that you did.
You can hear a smile. All right, can I go now?
aware.
Can I please? Can I go now? Can I get us started?
Yes, you can. Could you hear that hair flip?
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing.
Testing. Test.
Can you do this like for real? Because it doesn't mean no good if you're just being goofy.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Now I'm talking like I would talk normally during the episode.
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, you're a tough sound check. You're a really tough sound check.
You're a lot of things. Just saying.
I have a tough exterior, but a jelly inside.
We're very mature here at the
world headquarters of Caregiving Gen X Style. CGS. Really, it takes you that much to come up with it?
I thought there were a lot more letters.
I mean,
Caregiving Gen X Style.
You could go with CGXS, but that seems excessive.
It is. It's excessive, all right. I was thinking Lionel Richie. Sail on.
Which is not about sailing.
Honey.
It's not about sailing.
Good times.
It's him
never felt
getting the hell
so good.
out. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Caregiving Gen X Style. I'm Steve Mullen.
Why are you doing that?
I don't know. It just came out weird. Oh, it's...
And your head is bobbing.
Well, if you move your
style.
head, you get more energy that way. It comes across in your voice. We'll try this again. So,
I think that should be... It's going to be in an outtake.
It's going to be in an
that
outtake.
Was Steve popping a beer.
Yeah, I forgot to open that before the episode started.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me get started on that. Yo, everybody, it's your boy Steve, and welcome to Caregiving Gen X Style. I was trying something out there. Did it not work?
Nope.
No, I can't pull that off. Okay, we'll try it again then.
Your mouth was open so wide.
I'm so sorry. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Caregiving Gen X Style. I am Steve Mullen.
Yo, shizzle!
Yo, shizzle. Just about done with you.
I've only been home for like 30 minutes.
I know.
Okay. I was ready before.
But then you weren't.
because you forgot how to talk.
Because I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Jennifer.
Oh my God. Okay, Stephen. When you're doing this
We're recording
stuff
now while you're fussing at me.
is literally when you should be recording. Because people, in case this makes it on a blooper episode, he was doing a mic test and then said, oh, I had you turned all the way down. There's a joke in there, is there not?
There's a joke in there somewhere.
There is a joke in there. I was also saying there should be a picture of us right now because as we are prepping for this podcast...
We're not proud of this.
We're making sure that we have...
Backup beverages. That's really what they are. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I've got a beer open. Just opened it, but I got another one open over here because I don't want to open a beer on the recording.
Yes,
Click.
because I just came back from a girls' weekend trip. I have a can
of wine.
A can of Yes Way Rosé.
She's a classy lady.
I'm classy. And then my backup beverage is a box of wine.
Oh, yeah. A little mini box. I mean,
Listen,
it's a mini box.
It was good beach traveling.
Okay.
Beverages.
All
Am
right.
I loud enough now, or do you still have me turned down?
No, I think you're good now.
Great.
I think you're good.
Okay.
Why are you laughing already? Did I do something funny? A little bit. I don't really think I did. Let's try again, shall we?
Well.
Fine. All right, so we hope you enjoyed our screw-ups. We'll do this every so often because obviously we screw up a lot.
A lot.
Remember to send in your questions, comments, your how's your mom's, your how's your dad's, your how's your loved ones, whatever. If you'd like to email them to us, you can email at caregivinggenxstyle@gmail.com. You can also send us a text, leave us a voicemail. Either one of those will work at this number, 804-723-1221. You can send us a note on Twitter. Our handle is @GenXCaregiving. We're also on Facebook. It's best to use the link that's in the show notes, and you can get all of this information from the show notes as well. We hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.
Good night, everyone.